Furnace Creek Visitor Center today in Death Valley, California. And this is the site of the first adventure mountain hike I ever took. It was 56 years ago when I was 10 years old. That's an age reveal. And my family would bring us down to Death Valley during spring break from Oregon. And they love to go to viewpoints and view those viewpoints and just see nature. And so I really appreciate my family having brought me to places like this. But when it came to adventure experiences in the mountains, they didn't like to do that. So their experience at Death Valley was to hang out at the pool at Furnace Creek Ranch. And that was wonderful. But for me, I just had to be out wandering while they were at the pool. So they let me loose. And at age 10, I remember seeing this feature. It's a little house up on a hill. And I was at the visitor center. I was looking at that and thinking, wow, I'd like to go up there. And so that is the very first adventure experience that I had in my life that involved mountains in the desert. And from there, of course, that became a lifelong experience, a lot of other mountains. But I'm going to repeat this experience for the first time since I was a kid. So here we go. And that little house up there, or the little structure up there on the hill, I found out later is called the tea house. And the tea house, I think, was used by the visitors at the inn at Death Valley, which is below. And I guess it was something they would hike up to and then have tea. So we're going to go up to the tea house, and then I'll show you the next location that I discovered when I reached the summit of the tea house. So here we go. Okay, I'm only about 5 minutes into this. I started out at about 9:25, 9:28, and heading roughly southeast from the visitor center. And some observations here. I remember heading straight across to the tea house from the visitor center. But somehow I've forgotten as a kid, maybe I didn't notice this, but rocks. Lots of rocks and little washes to navigate over. So, interesting. Maybe all this happened since I was a kid. I don't know. There are lots of floods in Death Valley every season. And during the, I think it's the winter, where a lot of the floods occur. And then of course in July you get flash floods. And this is an alluvial fan. It's all the debris that's washed down from the mountains during these floods and over the centuries. And as you look at the mountains across the way, you'll see alluvial fans spreading out at the base of every canyon. By the way, we're looking toward Furnace Creek Ranch now. But in the distance, you can see, and these are points of interest that I had no idea existed. There's Telescope Peak, Wildrose Peak. You can see Bennett and Rodgers Peak also. We'll get a better look when we get a little higher. And there's the Panamint Mountain Range. I didn't know all I knew is that, at age 10, that those were really cool mountains. And now I've been up in the mountains, so that's amazing. It's just amazing to be back here and experience this, knowing what's around me. So we're looking toward Furnace Creek Ranch now, just to the west of where we're standing, and then up north west toward the northern part of Death Valley. And yeah, there's the visitor center. 2 or 3 minutes and it looks like it's way down there. So that's one thing about Death Valley that was a wondrous thing as a child, is that it didn't take very long to elevate myself just by wandering around in the desert. And it's like a free-for-all. Hey, you can wander anywhere. Coming from Oregon, you had to have a trail or you were going to be bushwhacking, and I don't like to do that. But in the desert, you can wander around wherever you want, pretty much, and you get these expansive views because there's not much other than the geology of the landscape to view. So this was just an amazing thing as a kid, and I'd see hills like that, and I'd say, I want to go up there, and then I'd look at other locations, and I remember going all the way back up the canyons as a child to the base of the mountains, and maybe I'll share a little bit more of that as we go today. But just wanted to say that's the amazing thing about the desert and this kind of landscape, is that you can see a location and you can say, I want to get there, and you can go straight there and then just figure out what is the path of least resistance along the way. So let's continue up toward the tea house. And by the way, right at the base of the tea house is the Death Valley Inn. We'll get better shots of that. We're looking right into the sun at this point. So yeah, we'll get it much more clear from the tea house. But let's continue across all these rocks and head to the tea house. Here we go. There's a little horseback riding excursion below. And then looking back toward the Death Valley Visitor Center, Furnace Creek Visitor Center. And then across the valley. But the reason I'm stopping here is just to note the desert plant life. Lots of mesquite bushes. This is part of a huge mesquite grove that is just south of Furnace Creek Ranch. Actually, this is one of the outliers. It's not the actual mesquite grove. And they're up toward the Telescope Peak in the Panamint Range. But another reason I wanted to stop here is that this hill is my first avalanche slope that I ever took. If you want to see more avalanche slopes recently in the last few years, take a look at the Mummy Mountain pages on LasVegasAreaTrails.com. You cannot ascend Mummy Mountain in the Mount Charleston wilderness without encountering lots of avalanche slopes. So yeah, I'd had a little experience, but nothing like what I experienced on Mummy Mountain. Here we go, up the first little avalanche slope. Yeah, continuing just for the 360 degree view, you can see how the landscape changes dramatically. I've only been out here about 5 to 10 minutes now, and a couple things. It looks like I've gone a lot further than I have. and also the landscape is definitely changing. And here you can see some reeds directly ahead. There are a number of springs in the area, and you know, Furnace Creek was originally Native American land, and they would get their water supply from the abundant springs in the area. So let's go ahead and continue on up. And by the way, the trees that you see there, mesquite trees, and they're bordering on some little spring. So let's cross that spring and head up this hill. Look at this higher perspective, and we're only less than 10 minutes from the visitor center at this point, which is way down in the distance there. There you go. That's where we started, right down there. And now there's more of a perspective. And as I said earlier, I was talking about alluvial fans. Well, we are on a lot of material that's washed down from the surrounding mountains, and this is called composite. And the water continues to cut through the composite, and then you have intervening canyons, and there's our washes, and there's one right down there between me and the tea house up there. So little course correction. I believe that maybe that was the way that I came that first time, because I guess I was smarter as a 10-year-old and knew that I needed to ascend that slope and then continue on up to the tea house. Instead, now I'm faced with having to descend and reascend, and you just have to watch out here, because this is all loose rock and you don't want to go over the edge of it. It looks pretty tame, but when you're walking along it, yeah, you're not gonna maybe kill yourself on something like this, but boy, it's a real cheese grater if you slip. Anyway, yeah, continuing along toward the tea house up there. I'm gonna have to go down and up again, but yeah, we're gonna make it. Here we go. The cool thing about desert navigation, by the way, is that when you reach points like this, it's like a puzzle, and you ask yourself, okay, how can I get down and up? What's the path of least resistance? And you look around, you can develop your own route, and most of the time it works out. So I think I'm going to go right up. I'm going to go down. There's a little minor wash on this hill, and then I'm going to go across and ascend that wash, because that is where this ridge would lead anyway. So let's go ahead and go for that. Something new that wasn't there 56 years ago. Let's go ahead and check this out. Looks like a memorial, and it is just to the right of, well, just to the left of the memorial is the Wildrose Peak, Rodgers and Bennett Peak, and then Telescope Peak up in the Panamint Mountain Range. And there's a better look at those. We were just up there a few months ago. That's a good summer experience. Nice cool weather when down here at this level you're experiencing 120 to 130 degrees up on 11,300 foot approximately Telescope Peak. You're in 70 degrees. It's an awesome summer excursion. Okay, So let's check this memorial out, see what it is. It says Portugal, Spain, Mexico, 1881. Maybe it's a memorial for the initial explorers of Death Valley. Who knows? Let's take a closer look. Oh, it has footprints there. So I don't think they left their footprints in 1881, because this didn't even exist. And there's Arizona, Nevada. And what's it say? It says something on each side. California, December 20th, 1938. Okay, must have been when California became a state. Who knows? And, well, some mining implements, it looks like, on this side. And then, yeah, interesting. Looks like we've got some grave markers here. Maybe some explorers were here in those 120, 130 degree temperatures and exploring in the hills and maybe looking for gold. And later these sites were discovered and this memorial was constructed. I do not believe it was here 56 years ago, but these sites definitely were there, and I didn't even know they were here. So, okay, let's continue on up. There's the tea house up at the top there, and then looking in this direction. And yeah, we're looking into the rising sun here, so it's not the best view, but there's the Death Valley Inn. We'll get a better look as we get higher. Okay, so now at least we're in the right group of hills, I believe. Yeah, it looks like there could still be an intervening canyon that we have to descend and reascend. So we'll figure this out. Okay, it took 2 minutes to get this next height. There you can see the memorial and all the grave markers. Directly below, and you see it looks like, wow, we went a mile, but actually not much at all. It was very quick. And let's do the 360 toward Telescope Peak area, Panamint Range. Now you're getting a little better view of the inn at Death Valley, but we'll get an even better view from the tea house. And there is the tea house, and I can see a ridge goes right along and up this slope. But you know, this is where you got to start watching out, because there are some really steep drop-offs down this composite, and you definitely don't want to slide down these, because no, you wouldn't stop right away. You'd not only in some of these steeper drop-offs that suddenly appear, you got to keep your eyes open up here. You would definitely not just grind yourself up on the gravel, but you'd break some bones, and perhaps it could be a career-ending move for you. So there is the tea house. We're heading there. And then to finish the 360, you can see golden like canyons all around us. Looks like a main power supply below for Death Valley or Furnace Creek. And yeah, take a look at that. Pretty cool. And you know, less than 15 minutes. Probably spent more time taking videos than than proceeding in this direction. But less than 15 minutes. Look at the view. If you're staying at Furnace Creek Ranch or the inn, you know, climb on these hills. Look around. There's so much you can see. And by the way, let's see if we can nail it. I'm thinking that Aguereberry Point is up in this area. We were there just a couple of weeks ago. Ran that approach road 6 miles each way. Yeah, because I remember the intervening hill that was sort of blocking some view from up there. Or it could be over here. But there's a pretty large hill before you get to the upper ridge. So yeah, and you can see the canyons, the alluvial fans, the canyons that could be a way to approach Aguereberry Point. The only problem is, you know, getting across the valley. It doesn't look very far, but it's about 20 miles. And if you proceed across Death Valley for 20 miles, you got to hike back 20 miles, and plus you're going to ascend from about 181 feet below sea level at Furnace Creek Ranch. I think that's the altitude. You're going to ascend all the way to a little over 6,000 feet to Aguereberry Point. So 20 miles each way plus 6,000 foot ascent is definitely a challenging day. By the way, things I didn't know when I was 10 years old is that, hey, this is the desert, you should have water. So all the hikes that I did at that time, I just take off, no water. It worked okay. It was spring break, it was March, but it wasn't the middle of the summer. I have water today and have learned since then, yes, have plenty of water if you're going to be in this area and places like this. Okay, so let's continue on up to the tea house. Here we go. We can clearly see the path up to the tea house from where we're standing, so no more huge intervening canyons. And there it is up ahead. Easy little walk. And then another 360. And there you can see the Funeral Mountains in the background. And you know, to the, I guess it's the southeast actually. And then you can see the what we call the Badlands, and these are just canyons that do not end. There's Texas Springs Campground just east of Furnace Creek. Nice little campground. Beautiful view at night of the stars in the sky. Wow, it's crystal clear. That was the upper part of Texas Springs, and here is the lower Texas Springs area. And then of course, where we are now, dramatic drop-offs all around us. So yeah, definitely keep your eyes open. Look at that canyon. If we had continued up that original, yeah, we still would have made it up to the summit if we hadn't, you know, gone down and crossed over to this ridge. If we continued up the original ridge, yeah, there we go. It would have taken us to the summit also. Okay, onward. Great shot of the inn at Death Valley, and you can see the oasis area down there. Very beautiful. Go to the Death Valley in a Day page on Las Vegas area trails to get more of an experience of wandering through that oasis and how beautiful it is. We'll take another shot from up on up in the tea house, but I don't think it's going to be as good because the angle is not quite as good. And here you can see there's a Christmas star above the tea house. And I'm sure it's lit up at night. Beyond the inn, you can see the Badwater Road. And if we have time today, we'll go a little bit down the Badwater Road and go into Golden Canyon, but I'm not sure how the day is going to work out here. Okay, let's continue on up to the tea house. Okay, here we are at the tea house. Could have probably done it in about 10 minutes without all the stops for videos. But we're here. I remember my initial disappointment when I reached this. I was expecting something with, a regular building that was in use, but as you can see, it is pretty disintegrated here. One thing that I'll say though is that there's a lot of radio equipment on the hill here. It wasn't there 56 years ago. I guess they didn't have satellite internet then. And this is the year 2021, December. So yeah, here we are looking around. Let's get you see drop-offs definitely all around me. You don't want to wander over the edge of this. But there you have the inn at Death Valley. And you can see how water definitely changes the landscape, because you look around the inn at Death Valley and bleak desert all around. And just that one spring-fed oasis there. And then other things you can see, of course, there's the Panamint Range off to the sort of southwest, and definitely Telescope Peak, Rodgers Peak, Bennett Peak, and let's take a closer look here. Yeah, there you go. Telescope Peak, Rodgers and Bennett, and then over a little further, I believe this would be Wildrose Peak. And we looked down just a few months ago from that height, all those heights, and we looked down toward, there's the Mesquite Grove. That was visible. I think I pointed it out in the videos for Telescope Peak and Wildrose Peak. And then you could see the little square of Furnace Creek Ranch from way up in the Panamint Mountain Range, from those peaks we just mentioned. And yeah, look down in this direction. I don't think that's a mirage, but I think we're looking at a collection of water. It's rained here in the past week or so, and Death Valley used to be a huge lake called Lake Manly, and then as the mountain ranges around Death Valley rose, it created what's called a rain shadow. All the rain dropped on the other side of the mountains, and you can see the greenery on the other side of the mountains is much more lush than it is on this side. So all the rain dropped on the other side of the mountains, and so it just starved the lake, which eventually dried up, leaving salt flats and lots of sand along the desert floor, which is what we see today. Okay. And here, looking around, let's just walk around and see what we can see here. To the, I don't know, northeast, we're looking at the Badlands. And then to the west, to the east here, is the Funeral Mountain Range. And then, yeah, here's the communications equipment. And looking down in this area, I bet this is where the people who work at the inn have a room where they live. And then you can see the highway that comes up from, actually down in this area is Death Valley Junction, and this highway leads up to Zabriskie Point. And if you look straight across the top of those mountains, there's the Black Mountains up there. You go to the page of Las Vegas Area Trails, Dante's View to Mount Perry. We were up in the highest part of those mountains just a few weeks ago. Little 4-mile adventure from Dante's View up to Mount Perry along the spine of the Black Mountains, and it's just non-stop views of Death Valley from every perspective you can imagine the whole way. So it's definitely a must do trip for anyone who likes to explore mountains like this. And you can see little trails leading everywhere. And on my first experience as a 10-year-old here, I remember thinking, wow, I got here pretty fast, probably faster than today. And I remember thinking, okay, where else can I go? And I saw this mountain over here, with this little hill, and I decided, I want to go there. Maybe that's higher than where I'm standing right now. And that's how my whole life has been since then. Go to the higher location that you see from wherever you summited. And I found since then that this is called Table Rock. And the way I ascended Table Rock is right up, there's an opening in the cliff. We'll see if we can do it today. There's one shelf that I have trouble getting over. And I took my family up there. My son said at 5 years old, "This could be the end of my life, Dad." It's a little bit gnarly up there, and there's a final ledge. My daughter said, "Dad, I'm slipping." And of course I took pictures like any great dad would do. She made it. We all made it up to the top of Table Rock, and then one of my daughters discovered, hey, wait a minute, there's a horse trail on the other side. We don't have to go up the cliff. And that was the last time we did the cliff. Anyway, Table Rock. Okay. We're going to take this trail here, and hopefully that's going to lead down below, because of course the only way we're going to get over to Table Rock is by getting back down into the canyon below and then finding a way across over to Table Rock. Now, I did it once, and I think I can do it again. We'll just see how things look. water changes all the landscape and turns gradual, what were once gradual descents into cliff drop-offs. So I don't know what is still possible here, but it looks like people have been traveling this route. So let's just go ahead and try it and see if we can get over to Table Rock. Here we go. Just see what things look like on the inside. Of course, it's pretty evident when you look in from the outside. But yeah, here's some cool frames. There is, through this window, you can see Table Rock. We used to call it Flat Top before we found out, no, it has a name. It's Table Rock. And through this frame, here's a great shot of Furnace Creek Ranch. Through this frame, Telescope Peak and Panamint Mountain Range. That's pretty cool. If you were having tea when this was a real going thing, up here you had an awesome view, the Death Valley area, and then you could look down at the inn at Death Valley through this same window. And then through this window, yes, there was a look up to where Dante's view is. Of course, the communications equipment wasn't sitting here in the way of the window at that time. But yeah, you can see the views up in that direction. And then out the front door, there's a view of the Badlands around us. Looks like a water some kind of water reservoir, perhaps. The reason that it's covered is, of course, it would evaporate more water than you could consume. Okay, and there's the Funeral Mountains through the front door of the tea house, and then, of course, you can see the just the construction here. A pad of rocks, which are very similar. Flagstones that you see, it's very similar to what you see, same construction as you'll see at the inn. And well, there you have it. Yeah, good view up Death Valley to the north out this window. Okay, so the tea house, there you have it. More of the tea house than you probably expected or wanted to see, but that's a cool place. The goal is to get over to Table Rock, but first we have to get down into this this canyon below us. And so there are all kinds of little rabbit trails that go off in different directions up here. I'm going to take this one, and it looks like it makes a turn down there, and I could actually get down to that area, but that's the goal. We need to get down to that road down there below us, and then navigate over to Table Rock. So let's just see which of these little rabbit trails are going to get us there. And definitely watch out. We're on a very narrow ridge here, but looks like the drop off, at least if I'm going to fall, I don't want to fall to my right. I want to fall to my left, where I'll just grind myself up instead of beat my whole body to death. Okay, so here we go. Okay, yeah, we've been descending this little ridge here, and looks like there's a wash right just to our right, and we're going to take that wash. Hopefully it's going to take us all the way down to where we want to be, so we can hit that road and proceed over to Table Rock, which is just above the Golden Hills there. So very easy going all day. This is no scary adventure. This is just a lot of fun. Okay, onward. A little unexpected barrier. This must be the spring of Texas Springs. Who knows? Anyway, there's my shadow. We've got to cross this. Don't know how deep it is. Looks like there's a nice reed padding there. Although you could sink through it and you get your whole body wet. So let's just find an opening and see if we can cross it. Here we go. Not knowing what kind of living, biting things were in those reeds, I decided to go along the stream for a ways, and in this little spot it goes down underground. You can hear it over here before it dives underground and then continues along, and you can definitely see the path. Just follow the reeds and the plants, that thin line of vegetation. Anyway, yeah, we made it across, and now we are at that road we were looking at. And so we're going to head up here a ways and then see where we cross over to Table Rock. Okay, onward. There we're looking back. We're on that road now that we saw from above, looking back at the tea house. And over to the left, southwest, is Telescope Peak. And then continuing around. You know, as a 10-year-old, I didn't have a car, obviously. And my parents and two sisters were down at the pool at Creek Ranch all day. And so I still had the ability just to walk and explore these hills and be in an area that really felt, and it feels even today, like you could be 100 miles away from any civilization, even though around that corner is, to the right as the road turns, is the most populous area in Death Valley, Furnace Creek Ranch. Big tourist spot. But here, it's like you could be 100 miles away, except for, yeah, there's some telephone lines, but really it doesn't take away from the solitude of the desert. And I think that's what I began to realize and fall in love with very early in life. So let's continue on. And I think around the corner up ahead, we're going to take a left, head south, and make a beeline for Table Rock. And there it is, Table Rock. And we're going to attempt to ascend up the cliff on the left side. There is an opening, but there's a pretty scary ledge up there too. So we'll see if we can still do that. I've changed, and the land may have changed since then, so we don't know. Okay, so here we are now on those Golden Hills, which are pretty much made of mud. and yeah, it's pretty firm today, but I remember traversing this back in 1998 with a few friends of my kids, and they were all in high school, and one of them stepped in a spot that was a lot wetter at that time. In fact, that was a year where there was a tremendous bloom in Death Valley, one of the rare times. Flowers everywhere in the spring. But anyway, to continue on that story, she stepped in a mud spot and her feet went down no less than 1 foot went down no less than about 2 feet deep. She pulled her foot out and her shoe remained down in the mud. The mud closed over it, a couple feet of mud, and that shoe, I'm sure, is still in, somewhere out here in the mud. So she had to walk back barefoot on one, or with socks on 1 foot. So anyway, if it's rained, this is not, it's smooth now, better than those rocks a while ago. But yes, if it has rained recently, this is all just soupy mud, and you will go down and lose your shoes. Okay, here is that scary, scary approach. Right up this channel. You can see all the composite boulders to navigate around. And then up at the top of that channel, you take a left and you skirt around this exposed, loose, rocky cliff area. And then there's finally, right above that, there is a ledge right in this area to summit. And I tell you what, I did that when I was 10 years old because I didn't know any better. But what I'm going to do today is chicken out and take the horse trail, which is on the other side of Table Rock. And you can see trails going up in this direction. So let's find the horse trail. I just don't feel like skirting this one spot right up here. Is totally exposed and loose rock, and it looks steeper than it looked when I was 10 years old. Probably not, but anyway, things look different. So yeah, I'm going to take the horse trail. I'll stand up above that area on Table Rock in just a little bit. But yeah, we're going this way today. Here we go. Okay, here's a 360-degree view of the area. There you can see the cliff face of Table Rock. Yeah, pretty imposing. But over here is the cheaters route, which we'll be taking today, which is the horse trails. We'll find those. And then you can see hills all around us, and I'm sure that the horse rides go throughout these hills. There is Telescope Peak, Rodgers, Bennett, and Wildrose Peak, all up there in the Panamint Mountain Range. And then looking down this direction, you can see Texas Springs Campground. And below it, there's Furnace Creek. And over to the left or south of Furnace Creek is the Mesquite Grove. And let's see if we can pick out Aguereberry Point. Boy, that's a tough one. But I would guess, my best guess is it's right up on the ridge line up there. Notice how there is a kind of mountainous area below it. And you can see from the Aguereberry Point page of Las Vegas Area Trails how things looked from that point. Now, another possibility, which I'm not as sure about, would be right here where you've got the ridge in the upper ridge in the Panamint Mountains and Panamint, and then you've got this mountainous feature just below. So it's one of those two. I'm going to bet that it's actually right up in this area, would be Aguereberry Point. And then Skidoo would be over in this area. So there you have my best guess from where we're standing today. Okay, let's take that horse trail up to Table Rock, the less insane route. We're on the west side of Table Rock. There is the west side, and I believe I've connected with the horse trail. I got high enough that I didn't have to cross this, which is pretty interesting. But anyway, I believe this is the horse trail and continues along. I'm not sure horses actually make it to the top because it doesn't look like it's too beaten up by horses, but we'll get a look in a moment. Anyway, this is what things look like on this west side of Table Rock, the east side of Table Rock. Did I say west? It's the east side of Table Rock, and it's the furthest side from Furnace Creek Ranch. Okay, onward. Route to ascend Table Rock on the east side here. Looks like there's a little canyon here, and then there are potential ways to get up to that ridge. Once we're up on that ridge up there, I think it's just a walk over to the Furnace Creek side, the west side of Table Rock. So that above that cliff section I mentioned a moment ago. So let's go ahead and let's see if we can find a way up to the top of this ridge here, and then we'll just navigate the ridge over to the west side of Table Rock. Here we go. We ascended early in that little wash that, there is the base. We were looking at it from below on the west side of Table Rock, and we just went right up that wash up to this point. Now we are on we're above the cliff. Now, this is where things get really misleading. When you're in an area like this, you don't realize, it looks very smooth, but all this is loose rock on the edge, and there's a sheer cliff face right over the edge of this. So that's where it's things can be a bit misleading, and you can say, oh, I'm going to go down this little opening. Don't do it, because it'll end at a cliff, and then you may not be able to get back up. So, and you may not be able to get down. And when you can't get down and you can't get up, we call that condition being cliffed out, and you need to have someone come and rescue you. But I can continue right along this ridge line. The cliff face that we were looking at earlier is just to the left, and there's a more gradual area to the right. So yeah, I'm going to continue up, and I believe that the summit of Table Rock, above that scary spot that I showed in one of the earlier videos, is right up at that high point. So yeah, let's continue on up. I'm not on a horse trail right now. You don't want to even be on a horse in an area like this with that cliff face. The horse trail actually goes down another ridge. It's just beyond this little hill in the foreground, and it circles around back to where we were just a moment ago, and you can see a horse trail down below where it meets up and then continues down back to that road that we were looking at, that we were on a while ago. So, and here you see the Funeral Mountains to the west. And then you're looking up toward Mount Perry, and on the other side of Mount Perry, about 4 miles, is Dante's View, and that's to the south of here. And then, yeah, there's the length of Death Valley. There's a shot of the tea house where we were not too long ago. And now we're on the other side of Texas Springs Campground, down in this area. There we go. And then here's the expanse of Furnace Creek Ranch. And you can see, you look closely, let's see, right down in this area. There we go. Right in the center is the Forest Service station, Death Valley Ranger Station, where we began. And then circling around, we'll see these better when we get to the summit, but there you can see up toward the northern area of Death Valley. Okay, here's a look at that passageway that we looked at from below. This is the scary passage from above. So yeah, I'm glad I didn't take it today. I'll just save that for my younger days. Anyway, yeah, here we are on the summit of Table Rock, and you can see the rugged nature of the area around us. We came up this little trail here and up over, to the west there. But yeah, you can see how it just drops off. And loose rock right at the edge of that drop off too. And there is the tea house. And then above the tea house, there's Telescope Peak, Rodgers Peak, Telescope Peak to the left, Rodgers Peak pretty much in the center. And then as I move over south, there we are at Wildrose Peak. And you can see pages for all of those on LasVegasAreaTrails.com. Panning around here, you can see Furnace Creek Ranch below us. To the left or south is the Mesquite Grove. And then there's the northern stretch of Death Valley. And then going in this direction, the Funeral Mountains immediately to the west. So there you have it. The summit of Table Rock and the views that you can see from here. Pretty amazing. You're staying at Furnace Creek Ranch, and Table Rock is a very brief hike. Just tremendously beautiful. Better view of the actual horse trail. We'll take this and just run it down to where we began. Funeral Mountains, great view of the Funeral Mountains there. To the west of Furnace Creek and to the west of where we're standing. And then there's Mount Perry. I believe that high point there is Mount Perry to the south. And then 4 miles further south is Dante's View. So there you have it, the views from Table Rock in Death Valley. Summit of Table Rock, where we're standing right now, and there's a look at a place where I took some video just a while ago, right at the edge of that cliff approach. What we're going to do is we're going to take a different way down. Yes, we're going to take the actual trail down this time, and you can see the trail as it skirts right along this ridge, circles around right down in that area, and then heads down, nice and gradual actually. We're going to run it, and then ends up in that wash. We're going to take the wash downward, and here we catch an upper view of that wash. Okay, there's Texas Springs Campground, and you see these golden hills. Looks like a triangle, the Golden Triangle. Anyway, we're going to take the right side of that Golden Triangle and continue on down to the Death Valley Visitor Center. Okay, so that is our route. We may be able to run the whole way. Who knows? We'll see what happens. So here we go. Down the gradual trail. Okay, there is the summit. Wow, we got down here and to where I am right now in about, less than 1 minute. So this is definitely a faster approach if you want to take the easiest, most gradual approach, even faster than the one I took and more gradual. So here we are, and we're heading down, and we're going to continue on this little trail and head right through that pass there, and then take a right and end up at Furnace Creek Ranch. So let's continue on down. Beautiful little trip. If you're at Furnace Creek, you want to see an awesome view of the area. Yeah, come up to Table Rock up there, and if you want to take the gradual way, or if you want to take the scary way, you've got your choice. I've done both, and you see the one I'm choosing to take today. Okay, onward. Triangle that we saw from above, here it is right in front of us. So we're going to head down now. We've left all trails, of course, and we're going to head down and take the right side, or the north side of that Golden Triangle, and continue on down to the visitor center, which is right down in this area below. And then just a quick 360. There you see Creek Ranch. And over the hill here, you can see the tea house. And then in this direction, here is Table Rock. And here's that scary approach. And yeah, you could take this. I've done it a few times, taking my kids up here, but I don't know. It looks, from my perspective today, this part in particular looks a little sketchy, crossing that area right at the base of the cliffs. So that's why I took the other trail. And that works too. And then continuing around, there's the northern view of Death Valley. And then back to the Golden Triangle and taking the right side. Here we go. And by the way, that white substance, notice there's quite a bit of white substance in the mud here. I believe that's alkali salts from the evaporation that takes place in the desert. And you can even see that there are some places where the ground has cracked, because between the salt and the sun, it just pulls all the moisture out of the ground. Anyway, this white substance, if you've ever used borax soap, this is the type of substance from which borax soap is made. So, and there's even more down further in the valley. Next to the Furnace Creek Visitor Center, there is a place called Harmony Borax Works. You can see it on Death Valley in a Day page on LasVegasAreaTrails.com, where we were down there. That is actually the location of the original borax fields, or the alkali fields from which borax was manufactured. And when you hear the phrase 20 mule team borax, there were actually they would put the alkali on wagons that were hauled by 20 mules, and that was that was how borax got its nickname, 20 mule team borax. And they'd haul that out of Death Valley by mule. Later, they had a little tractor car, a steam tractor, that would pull those wagons. They called it Dinah, and that song, Dinah, Won't You Blow Your Horn, actually came from old Dinah, that would pull the alkali out of the desert up through the canyons. And there's actually a 20 mule team canyon, and we'll visit that at some point, so you can see the actual canyon that the mule team and old Dinah passed through. And then eventually there was a Death Valley Railroad, but Dinah was a tractor that would just go with no tracks, just would traverse open desert ground and canyons and pull the huge wagons of alkali out of Death Valley. So quite a history here. Okay, and you see the white all around us. More alkali. And there up ahead is the Golden Triangle. We will go to the right of that triangle and continue down and over to the Death Valley Visitor Center at Furnace Creek. Okay, here we go. If you go to the Death Valley in a Day page and look at the video for Furnace Creek Ranch, there's a museum there, and you can see a video where we caught old Dinah and the Death Valley Railroad steam engine and some of the original carts that the mules hauled out during the 20 mule team phase. So all that's on Death Valley in a Day page of LasVegasAreaTrails.com. Okay, here we go. Said before, when you're navigating the wilderness and you just take a logical route like we're doing right now, often what you find is a trail will appear. And sure enough, we're on the north side of that golden triangle, and guess what is here? A trail. And this happens not just in Death Valley close to the heavy population area, but it happens up in the far wilderness. You look at the ridge system and you decide, okay, let's take this route through this pass and around these mountains. And believe it or not, you won't be the first person that's decided that. You will find trails appear and disappear. Just stick with your instinct, and when the trails disappear, just keep on going the route that you saw from above, and the trail will again reappear, and it will guide you to where you want to go. Normally, sometimes it doesn't. You got to turn around and retrace your way back to the last point where you had a choice which direction to go. And so, yeah, here we are, and we're looking back at Table Rock, and we used to call this Flat Top before we knew that it was actually Table Rock. I think Flat Top is a better name because there's a lot of table rocks around the world, but there's only one flat top, and that is right here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is continue down to the visitor center, which is right down here. You see how close we are. This is going to be lightning fast compared to the trip on the way. Okay, here we go. Reached the horse track, and here's a group ascending by horse. So we know now we're in a much more gradual area. And there's the visitor center. We'll take the straight route across every obstacle we can see right to that visitor center. Here we go. Okay, here we are back at the beast. And here is the Furnace Creek Visitor Center. Only took us about 30 minutes to get down here from Table Rock. And then circling around, yeah, there we go, up the main highway toward the north end of Death Valley. And then here we have the Funeral Mountains. And there's Table Rock. And the Golden Hills in front. Here's the visitor center sign. Right above it, the tea house, which was our first destination. So, great little trip. You don't even have to get in the car and go anywhere if you're staying at Furnace Creek Visitor Center, or if you're staying at Furnace Creek Ranch. And there is, up the hill, is the inn at Death Valley. And so there you have it. The tea house and Table Rock from Furnace Creek Visitor Center. By the way, self-portrait. Here I am mirrored in the hatchback of the Beast.